We're talking about the White House Correspondents' dinner, and in particular, I suppose, how it fundamentally appears to be a propagandist gala, a celebration of compliance, full of pageantry and almost deliberate neglect of extremely important stories if those stories are not convenient to the agenda of the powerful. Indeed, there was a litany at one point of journalists around the world who are imprisoned, and no one ever said, Julian Assange, who's currently in Belmarsh waiting to be extradited to the United States. His name never came up. Why is that? How does power operate? While everyone was arriving at the gates of what is called the White House press dinner, numerous people, protesters, I guess you would call them, were chanting, "Shame on you." Oh, look, there are the guests, and look at the protesters. Look at the drama. Look at the challenge of holding together the various worlds. Look at the challenge of trying to pretend that this is a legitimate celebration of the free press while the propaganda is becoming evident, observable, and plain in real time. Now, the White House Press Correspondents' dinner has become a kind of evident gala of corruption and hypocrisy, where journalism is celebrated, where the principles of free speech are espoused, where the foundational instruments and principles of the United States of America are overtly celebrated while simultaneously absolutely ignored.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden, and First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden.
Is it me, or is that extraordinarily regal? Is that a lot of pageantry for Joe Biden? Like, many of you will remember this event because it's an opportunity, I suppose, for the president to hang loose and show what an easy, convivial guy he is. But this was an unusual White House Correspondents' dinner because, of course, the jokes were stymied, as one might imagine, but the attempt to ignore the hypocrisy of ongoing war and the deplorable neglect when it comes to the name of Assange was so evident and ever present that it amounts to, beyond an elephant in the room, it's a sort of a stampede. Let's have a look. Oh, there's a weird vibe. There's a weird vibe in that place. Okay, let's have a look at Biden's ode to the free press. And I want you to remember that at the moment, your tax dollars are funding several extremely unpopular and ultimately unwinnable conflicts. The United States' ability to negotiate and suggest and impose diplomacy is not being implemented. And it seems now that the Biden administration is on the precipice of annihilation, on the eve of a very significant election. Let's have a look at that speech.
That's why I want to close the night with my genuine thanks to the free press. There are some who call you the enemy of the people. That's wrong and it's dangerous. You literally risk your lives doing your job.
Do they risk their lives doing their jobs, or do they risk their jobs by living life? Seems implausible. Let's face it, we know the legacy media is in significant trouble. Terrestrial broadcasters and state-funded broadcasters and corporate broadcasters are laying off staff everywhere. They are frantic and in a panic because they know that you, the people that they attempt to reach, are losing interest and waking up in unprecedented numbers. They are aware that they no longer hold the sway or the power that they once did. That is why significant figures in the space are continually subject to smear jobs. Of course, you are aware that Joe Rogan was annihilated, rained down upon by corporate attacks throughout what we know as the ivermectin era.
Do I have to sue CNN?
Oh, no, do you?
They're making shit up. They keep saying I'm taking horse dewormer. I literally got it from a doctor.
The Tucker Carlson's on CIA hit lists. I've been subject to some extraordinary attacks. But this is it. This is where they try to double down on the idea that what they represent is freedom.
You do. Covering everything from natural disasters to pandemics to wars and so much more. And some of your colleagues have given their lives, and many have suffered grievous injuries. Other reporters have lost their freedom. Journalism is clearly not a crime, not here, not there, not anywhere in the world.
Do you think that they, in that moment, imagine that no one anywhere is thinking about Julian Assange, that no one is watching this thinking, hold on, isn't Julian Assange right now in jail for 5 years? What about Gonzalo Lira, who died in prison in Ukraine like he said he would, never mentioned? So ultimately what this is a celebration of their alliances. What this is once more the reiteration of their terrible intent to conquer consciousness through deception. I wonder too what fine and narrow lines Biden is invited to walk between so that he doesn't err or spill inadvertent truths in his... No, I don't want to be day one of a Christian. I've got to hold it together. I've got to hold it together. But he's Botoxed into facial compliance. But what about the necessary neurological compliance?
And Putin should release Evan and also immediately. Yes, we're doing everything we can. We're doing everything we can to bring home journalists, fellow journalists, Austin, and all Americans like Paul Whelan.
Also trying to bring home some journalists who've got nothing to do with America, like Julian Assange, who's Australian, who's in jail in the United Kingdom without trial. We're doing all sorts of things behind the scenes. Gonzalo Lira, though, no one's mentioning that guy. Why it's significant, as well as the telling sight of people in the audience unsure as whether to laugh or cry, is because we can glean from this scenario precisely the agenda of the powerful. What is said, what remains unsaid, who is celebrated, who is denigrated, who is framed and who is ignored. This used to be a kind of light-hearted event when it was like sort of Barack Obama, like Dean Martin or something, sort of flexing and sort of glinting and checking his cufflinks. And that, as Chappelle, I think, pointed out, the moment where Trump decided, I'm running for president. Now what we have, as I've said before, in the near sepulchral figure of Joe Biden, is the zombie embodiment of a dying system, an institution that can no longer cope, hiding behind a constitution that it no longer respects, ignoring a Bill of Rights that it would prefer had never been written. That's why this event feels so macabre, so unusual, so uprooted and lost, because when we look at it, those of us that are trying our best to authentically awake to ourselves and to others and to be present, recognize in this the eerie redolence of constant hypocrisy and deception. Thank God for our commercial partners. They make our life better, and particularly in the case of True Lean's Everyday Wellness, which is an all-natural 9-in-1 powder that boosts immune health, reduces inflammation, promotes gut health, including vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin B12, zinc, turmeric, and echinacea, is a potion of pure wonder. Everyday wellness, backed by science, inspired by Mother Nature herself. All you got to do is stir these sachets into water and enjoy. Unless you've got one of these glorious big bags. Look, this is like the parent. There it's sort of like cells that are within it. There it's infants, it's tadpoles, as it were. Control your health without prescription. Take that, Big Pharma. I'm feeling better already, and I can just feel Pfizer's stock price plummeting. Spicy citrus tastes like sipping on sunshine. Let me have a sip of that sunshine. The inner light of the Lord is shining from within me. You can visit truelean.com, code BRAND25 for 25% off. Use the code BRAND25, get 25% off. They'll know we work. I'll tell you what it feels like. It's spicy. It gives you a zing. It's life itself. Now, I'm sorry, my brothers and sisters, my aunts and uncles in Europe, this is only available in the United States of America. If you get some of this, if you don't feel the benefit within 30 days, Truelean will buy it back from you. Even if the bag's empty, you can send them this empty bag. You could even put something in there. I don't know, a stool, a rabbit's paw. They'll give you your money back. That's how confident they are in this product. Try Everyday Wellness for yourself today. You deserve it. Truelean.com. Use the code BRAND25 for 25% off. Let them know I sent you. It works well for us. God, this stuff's delicious. I can't get enough of it, but then I have an addictive personality. Let's get back to the content.
Who wrongfully detained all around the world. And I give you my orders to Biden. We're not going to give up until we get them home, all of them.
The word is to Biden. Whether it's me, Hunter Biden, or that other Biden that I give money to, all the Bidens, we're reliable, and I've got the checks to prove it.
All of them. On the third anniversary of January 6th, I went to Valley Forge.
We've got anniversaries of January 6th now. That isn't an event that needs continual review and scrutiny and analysis, that hasn't been exploited and used to legitimize further anti-protest laws, that wasn't likely infiltrated by various deep state interests. We've not had the final word on January 6th. We've not had the legacy media do any responsible reporting on that event. We've not had anybody explain why in so much of the footage it appears that police officials were ushering protesters onto the premises. What an extraordinary set of truths they seem to live in at the White House correspondent dinner.
And I said the most urgent question of our time is whether democracy is still the sacred cause of America. That is the question the American people must answer this year. And you, the press, play a critical role in making sure the American people have the information they need to make an informed decision.
And that they don't get some information that we'd rather they didn't have. Information about the origins of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Information about who is arming the various combatant nations in extraordinary and egregious wars across the world right now. How much it's costing you to fund these wars while infrastructure in your own nation crumbles. These are the very stories that they require the free press, emphasis on the free, to continue to neglect in their reporting.
A defeated former president has made no secret of his attack on our democracy. He said he wants to be a dictator on day one.
We'll remember that. It was a joke.
We love this guy. He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, no, other than day one. We're closing the border and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
It was a joke. I, as an English person who doesn't vote in your elections, obviously won't be voting for any presidential candidates in your November presidential process. But what I will say is I saw Donald Trump say that. I'll be a dictator for a day. It was a joke. Now, what did Jerry Seinfeld just say about a sense of humor?
There'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. Well, guess what? Where is it? This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people.
Mm-hmm. It means we've got no entertaining comedy on TV, but furthermore, we no longer even have the privilege of comedically communicating with one another, because Donald Trump's jokes, his use of the term bloodbath, we know that when he said bloodbath, it was a very particular reference to trade tariffs that might be imposed on China.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars if I get elected. Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath.
And here, in this context, where the floor is controlled, where the brass band plays the tune of Biden, a name that Joe Biden appears to believe is synonymous with truth and authenticity, but out here in the world of those that are taxed, either literally and financially like you, or like the rest of the world, who are taxed by the wars that that man and his administration fund, or are taxed by the lies that we have to listen to right now. The name Biden doesn't mean truth. The name Biden means despair. And when they directly cite occasions that we can recall that were jokes, astonishing.
Smithies, are they booing me?
No, they're saying boo earns, boo earns.
He tells supporters he is their revenge and retribution. When in God's name have you heard of another president say something like that? And he promised a bloodbath when he loses again. We have to take this seriously. 8 years ago, you could have written off it as just Trump talk, but no longer, not after January 6th.
Not after January 6th. Did you see our man Glenn Greenwald's post on this? He was responding to another post by Greg Price. The only value of this sleazy, gaudy spectacle has been to highlight the real role of US corporate media. Part of the royal court, courtiers of it. That's why they can't include Assange on their list of persecuted journalists. It's done by the king, whom they can't displease. The White House Correspondents' dinner, says Greg Price in his post on X, did a whole presentation on wrongfully detained journalists around the world. There was no mention of Julian Assange in that. Extraordinary. Let's have a look at Joe Biden roasting Donald Trump. It's an extraordinary roast. It's a roast undertaken using merely embers or perhaps a single struck match.
I had a great stretch since the State of the Union, but Donald has had a few tough days lately. You might call it stormy weather.
Now, I'll tell you why that's so funny. I'll tell you why it's so funny. Because that lady that he is alleged to have had an affair with and paid hush money fund to from campaign funds via Daniel Cohen in a way that's the worst thing that's ever happened. Her name was Stormy, so Stormy's got two meanings. Although you would argue that it being a porn name, she's using Storm to literally mean that anyway. But that would leave us without a pun. And a pun is all Joe Biden has got right now. Between him and the tomb, there is a pun, hun. Oh, they're like acting like, oh my God, world singer. Hey, I wouldn't want to be Stormzy Daniels right now.
What the hell? Trump's so desperate he started reading those Bibles he's selling.
He sells Bibles, so, you know, we're all aware of that piece of propaganda. In fact, what this speech amounts to is a set of references to a string of propaganda previously delivered by the institutions in that room. Do you trust a word of their propaganda?
Then he got to the first commandment. You shall have no other gods before me. That's when he put it down and said, this book's not for me.
Well, that's still a significant distance into the Pentateuch, and I think he would have done rather well, because I don't reckon Joe Biden would have gotten beyond the flickering lights as the light upon the water. I don't reckon he'd have got through Deuteronomy or Numbers or Exodus or any of that stuff. Yeah, that's right. It's day one of Christianity for me, and I'm citing that Bible. Let's have a look now at some extraordinary reporting on that event. This is out of the World Socialist Organization. You'll love this. The White House Correspondents Association dinner Saturday night was a disgusting display of subservience by the corporate media to the administration of President Joe Biden. It sought to cover up the blood-drenched role of this government, which is a full partner in the Israeli genocide in Gaza and is spearheading the US-NATO war against Russia and Ukraine, bringing the world ever closer to a nuclear third world war. Now, you may not agree with some of the terms used in that because you may have a particular religious or national or ethnic affiliation to one of the sides involved in these various conflicts. Maybe you're Ukrainian, maybe you're Israeli, but what you have to be first is a human being. And what we surely have to acknowledge together is there are some very powerful interests benefiting from these wars. Have a look at Lockheed Martin's stock prices. Have a look at Raytheon's stock prices. Have a look at Northrop Grumman's stock prices. And then have a look at the astonishing litany of lawmakers in Congress that own stocks and shares in those organizations. Some 2,600 people, including print and broadcast journalists, their corporate bosses, and their invited guests from Washington and Hollywood, rubbed shoulders, which is a disgusting image. Why would you do that? At the affair, where the head table included Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, etc. The event was the centerpiece of several days of festivities, including parties, receptions that were thrown by corporate trade groups and lobbyists. Other well-heeled participants all participated in it. So it's sort of like a week-long gala of normalizing propaganda. How extraordinary. The WHCA banquet is an annual event at which the corporate media throws an expensive bash in honor of itself. Do you know who I'd like to honor? It's me. I'm doing a great job being me. It celebrates its close ties to the administration in power and to the political establishment as a whole, while mouthing occasional hosannas to press freedom, although always in a way that aligns with US foreign policy. That's why some journalists' names are read out and honored, and I believe those journalists should be brought home. I don't think any journalists reporting on any side of any war should be held in captivity on foreign soil. And that is why I would include Gonzalo Lira, although alas I can't, because sadly, as he predicted, he's dead now, and why I would include Julian Assange, who, whilst he is not an American citizen, he does face extradition to the United States in an unprecedented move simply because he revealed information that was detrimental to the war machine. You will have seen, I hope you saw, my fantastic conversation, and I'm not bigging myself up here because all of the stuff that was fantastic came from Colonel Douglas Macgregor, a serving colonel in the American military who said that he believes that Julian Assange should be freed, that any right-minded member of the forces believes. Let me know, do you think Assange put American military personnel's lives in danger, or do you think Joe Biden is putting the lives of American military personnel in danger by escalating conflict in the Middle East, escalating conflict against Russia, preparing for conflict with China. Who is risking lives? Who is saving lives? It seems to me that Julian Assange, in publishing true information, is participating in the saving of lives, and he is in Belmarsh for that crime. The real crimes are crimes against the establishment. So while they will happily utilize martyr names of journalists held in prison abroad, who I too believe ought be freed, remember, they use those names as pawns in their games, a game that you saw augmented there by a brass band breezily playing in while the audience is braying, just so that Joe Biden can claim that the name Biden is synonymous with truth. Thus, there was much more concern expressed for Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, held for more than a year in a Russian prison, and for war correspondent Austin Tice, detained in Syria more than 12 years ago, but no one mentioned the name of the most celebrated journalist currently held in prison, Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks. While the dinner's MC, WHCA president and NBC correspondent Kelly O'Donnell did refer to the journalists killed in Gaza, she gave the number as nearly 100, although the actual figure is at least 175. She did not name the government and military responsible for those deaths, namely the Netanyahu regime and the Israeli Defense Forces, nor did she indicate the man who supplied the weapons used to kill those journalists who was sitting only a few feet to her right on the platform. I don't think there are many people in the world who think that what's happening right now in the Middle East is anything less than devastating and awful. If you're at a press gala that is specifically and explicitly celebrating free speech, and you do not mention the military relationship between the United States, the recent $95 billion bill to continue to supply Israel and Ukraine with arms to perpetuate wars that are either dreadfully immoral or simply unwinnable, we have to acknowledge we don't have a free press. We don't have a free press worthy of that conference. Next year, ban that event. Or invite some real journalists from around the world. And real journalists are willing to confront corruption. That's a necessary part of it. Julian Assange is a real journalist, or certainly a real publisher. When Biden finally took to the podium, his remarks were predictable. He devoted a few minutes to scripted jokes about his age and Trump's legal woes, followed by a 10-minute paean to the free press as his ally in the defense of democracy against the danger of Donald Trump. That is why they have to continually escalate the threat of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a dreadful menace. Him and his January the 6th combatants and insurrectionists will bring down democracy. So that's why you can only vote for one person. Okay, why won't you debate in any primary? There's another reason for that. Why are you spending so much time smearing RFK? There's another reason for that. Is it that the only person we can vote for is Joe Biden and you want us to still call it a democracy? Now you're getting it. Now go report that in the New York Times, and next year we'll have another gala celebrating the free media. You literally risk your lives doing your jobs, continued Joe Biden, having paid tribute to their patriotism and heroism. Some of your colleagues have given their lives. Many have suffered grievous injuries. Others have lied for years and years, smearing people for telling the truth. Other reporters have lost their freedom. Journalism's clearly not a crime. It is the way they do it. Not here, not there, not anywhere in the world, which could be the start for some sort of song. But for Julian Assange and other whistleblowers against the crimes of the CIA and American imperialism, and for the courageous reporters documenting the crimes of the state of Israel in Gaza and on the West Bank, this assurance does not hold. What they have done and are doing is a crime, according to imperialist warmongers like Biden and Netanyahu. Moreover, it is punishable by death. Biden was followed by an interminable stretch of flat jokes and limp insults from Colin Jost of Saturday Night Live, the designated entertainment for the evening. He closed with a fervent tribute to Biden, declaring that his grandfather, a longtime firefighter who had recently died, had voted for Biden in 2020 because you're a decent man. With a straight face, Jost continued, he voted for decency. And decency is why we're all here tonight. Decency is how we're all able to be here tonight. Decency is how we can make jokes about each other and none of us goes to prison afterwards. I suppose decency is a kind of tepid word that you might be able to apply to Joe Biden were you to judge him only by his persona, which seems relatively amenable. Decent indeed is a word. But that's only if you're willing to extract the figure of Biden from the policies and wars, whether it's the policies of censorship that prevent us from freely discussing wars, or compliant agreements made with various globalist organizations, some of which are NGOs or global forces such as NATO or the WHO, or the extraordinary facilitation of the military-industrial complex that continues under his presidency. Once you start incorporating that, indeed, if you spend a few moments reflecting on the way that he facilitates the furtherment of his son's career, although, you know, God, as a dad, would I do that for my kids? Probably I would, but then I'm not the president of the United States, and I'm not advocating for endless, unwinnable wars. So I suppose I'm perhaps not held to the same standard. It's difficult to determine the exact combination of willful ignorance and abject prostration before the capitalist state that produces such statements. But all of the participants in this degrading affair are forever besmirched by it. In the face of a world historic crime, they praise and fawn over its enabler and co-conspirator. So in a sense, what we witnessed in that event was an extraordinary celebration of the ability of the state to control a narrative, to extract from their reporting a figure like Julian Assange, who stands head and shoulders over the profession of journalism and the decline of modern media, to ignore that even as they mention in real time the death of journalists in Gaza, they fail to include the causes and costs and manner in which those deaths have been brought about, the way that that war is being funded, the way that that war is being perpetuated, the if not refusal, then reluctance of the United States of America in both the conflicts in the Middle East and the conflicts in Europe to facilitate diplomacy, treaties, and peace, rather than seemingly exploit an opportunity to sell further armaments. And certainly that's how it seems from the outside. But let me know what you guys think in the chat is happening.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.